Those who've walked out on first dates, what was your I'm out of here moment? Had a first date with a girl who insisted we go to a really expensive place, where she ordered a $25 appetizer, $45 steak and a $15 drink. She wouldn't put down her phone, kept taking calls and answering texts. The waitress noticed and motioned for me from behind her. I excused myself, and the waitress had separate bills all made up and asked if I wanted to pay my share and leave her at the table. I said, that would be wonderful. So I did.
He invited me and a friend to play dodgeball with a group of folks I've never met. We're having an okay time. He's paying more attention to his friends, but that's fine because I've got my friend to keep me occupied. We're hanging out in the parking lot before the first game is about to start when out of nowhere he grabs a ball and throws it at my crotch as hard as he can. This beep screams, wham, bam, right in the clam. I immediately turn to my friend and ask her if she's ready to leave. I say goodbye to him and his friends. Immediately come home to a grip of texts about how immature I was behaving.
Went to meet a guy for the first time at his house. There was a pile of toenail clippings on his coffee table. And it wasn't one recent clipping. It was like, many clippings. Out the door I went.
This guy and I were eating dinner after chatting for a couple of weeks, and unprompted, in the middle of something I was saying, and completely unrelated to what was being discussed, he said something along the lines of, so you know in order for this to work you're gonna have to share yourself, right? My friends and I like to pass girls around. I was pretty dumbfounded, and after a bit of stuttering I told him I didn't think it was going to work, asked for a to-go box and my portion of the check, and noped the beep out of there.
Went first for a walk. He did not shut up for a minute for 1 hour, complains about everything and everyone in his life, not even ask nor allow me to give a comment. Sat down, he orders food for me, without even asking. Gets his drink, bartender mentions the caps are difficult to open, but he arrogantly and rudely brushes him off, tries to open them himself but ends up spilling juice all over himself. Yells like it was the staff's fault and how the country he is from is superior. No regard for people, just yelling. At that point, I wanted to get under the table because that was actually a restaurant I frequently visit, from a small town with just a handful of restaurants. Continues to talk about how superior and above all that incompetence he is, and when he becomes manager, he would fire people like that. Continues with complaints for another hour. I offered to split the check considering that he talked about money issues and because I obviously did not want to see him ever again, so did not want to feel like I owe him anything. He yells at me, I leave the money on the table, walk off. He basically continues yelling at stuff for going after check again with the in my country, talk about how they have it on the spot. Grabs my hand and says angrily to wait for him. Ask me literally 2 questions finally. I say I will grab a taxi, but he forcefully insists to walk me home. To avoid him making another scene, I accept. We walk in silence. I try to have him off and leave. He insists to follow me home, how there are probably some dangerous people around. He tried to force himself on me on my front door, the one of the yard, fence or how it is called, even though I said I don't think it will work. Exact words, you owe it to me, we went on a date, I did not waste my money for nothing. I literally pushed him off, he was skinnier, and threw another $20, besides the ones I already left for my meal in the restaurant, at his face, saying, here, we are done, got instantly in the yard, locked the fence, while hearing him yell, and sent him a text that I will call the police if he does not get the beep out of there. He left. The worst part is, his aunt was our neighbor, my mom knew his mom and were good friends, and the next day, on my way out she literally had the audacity to ask, how did it all went? I am pretty sure she heard him screaming awful things since literally, their house is like 10 meters from mine, across the street, literally, and I told her just, you should have raised him better. They never spoke to me again. I am absolutely fine with that. Edit. To everyone asking about his country, I have replied to some, but still to answer, he was from Serbia, and I do not hold it against Serbian people, quite the opposite, nor do I think that was SMH related to his country or their mentality, but his own personal shortcomings and insecurities, and he was probably trying to, I don't know, impress me or show off or boost his ego, probably all of that. There are beep assholes like that probably everywhere, so it is not that, even though yeah, Balkan countries, in general, still have more patriarchal, toxic masculinity, macho man syndrome issues compared to some more developed European countries. Their Serbian mentality, standard culture is similar a lot to ours, and Macedonia. Because not so long ago, like literally when my grandparents were young, these countries lived in Yugoslavia community, and our mindset, culture, development may not be the same, but it is pretty similar and we share a lot of similarities in culture. So I do not think it was that much of a cultural difference or whatnot, rather projecting and lashing out to compensate for personal insecurities.
The fact that within 10 minutes of meeting him he started making sexual comments and joking about following me home so he could stalk me if I rejected him. I got out with the help of a bartender who let me leave out the back door.
On a first date with a military guy. He spent a large portion of the date talking about why the strippers in Toronto were better than the strippers where we lived. To change the topic, I asked him if he did any volunteer work with the military overseas and he said no. I joined the military to kill people, not help people. I got my bill, chugged my beer, and left as fast as I could.
Not me, but this happened to a friend. Context: friend has a beard. So my friend picks up this girl and they're on their way to dinner and she says, "You do realize that if this is gonna work you have to shave that off, right?" He didn't say anything, just turned around and dropped her back off at her house.
This is meeting someone from an online dating app. He turned up with pupils the size of dinner plates and super erratic. He said he'd forgotten his wallet, so I got the first round. We were on the way to the second pub to meet his mates so they could lend him some money. For the walk there he spoke absolute garbage/nonsense non-stop, but ended with how he tried to drown his ex's chihuahuas in a pool. Near the pub he said he had to answer whoever was calling him on the phone. At this point we were 30 minutes into the date and already going to the next pub. He downed his drink in about 3 seconds. Whilst he stood there on the phone I said I would meet him at the pub, everything was all in close proximity, but instead walked past it and ran all the way home.
1 p.m. lunch date and she was drunk as a skunk. She invited me back to her place, where she said her 2-year-old son wouldn't even notice. I no-ped out and called her a cab home. I still feel bad for the son years later.
She finally let it slip that she had a BF lol, but it was totally fine. BC, things had been going bad for a long time and she was going to break up with him. My thoughts were that if she would do that to him she'd do it to me. No thanks.
Invited me to a bar which was apparently close to his apt, and kept wanting to snuggle at his apt with me. I left to a friend's party and met the man I've been with for 3+ years. The first guy later texted me a dick pic on Easter Sunday.
She brought her pet rat with her that was hanging out in her bra, feeding it French fries. She casually mentioned she had warrants, so I just faked an emergency and bailed.
Went to pick up my blind date. She opened the door and looked at me. Ew, I looked at her and said, "Yeah, I agree," and turned on my heel and left. Total date time less than 5 minutes.
He started making comments about my puss, then took me to his house to use the bathroom before the next part of our date. We had lunch first, then were supposed to play mini golf. Didn't know he lived with his parents, so I had to meet them on the first beep date. They were nice, but I felt so uncomfortable because I already knew this wasn't going to move beyond date number 1 thanks to his puss remarks. He told me to wait in his room while he went to the bathroom and I noticed that his computer was on. Before our date he was chatting with a friend and he left it up on the screen. The last message he'd sent said, "I hope I get to see internet posers' tits, I bet they're so perky and small." The beep, why leave that up and send me in there to see it? I lied saying that my mom called with an emergency and needed me back home, no-ped the beep out and never spoke to him again.
Great chats online, decided to meet in person. He's got a Bluetooth headset with a little LED light that shows it's on. He keeps it on during drinks. I work up the nerve to ask if he can take off the headset while we're eating dinner. With pride and complete confidence he says, "Don't worry. You totally have my full attention. This isn't a phone headset, it's a camera."
When I realized she was trying to get her ex get jealous of me. She chose the place and time and it was where her ex worked at that time. Left and apologized to the ex. Later she texted me saying that she'd forgive me for the faux pas if went to another date she still picked the same time and place. I ghosted her.
Blind date she took to a fetish party, asked me if I wanted to pee on a guy with her, told her no thanks, I'll use the urinal this time and split.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.